It doesn't take a genius to see that human relationships as they stand today need a complete makeover. We are in a crisis mode from my perspective. Right now, if we just look at partner relationships, where couples come together in that institution of marriage, we can see in North America nearly half of those marriages end in divorce, which is a sad fact. But it speaks to the point, doesn't it, that there's something something wrong, something's amiss, and it needs our attention if we're willing to draw our awareness to it. And I think one of the big issues, definitely just one of many, is the desire to connect and understand someone. That may seem quite strange at first. It may seem, well, of course we want to connect with other people. We want to understand them. But that understanding that we're doing is taking place in a very conscious plane of existence. It's what we think we know. And I hope by now you can well grasp that the conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg as I've described it. It's just a small fraction of the totality of who we are. And what happens is when we try to understand someone, let's forget in terms of a romantic situation, but just everyday situation where we're trying to understand someone. And what happens is if we feel there's a click, if there's some connection, we try to forge a friendship with that person. And when we don't feel there's a click, we tend to move on. And again, there's no judgment attached to that. But what I think is fundamentally flawed is our process by which we define whether there's a connection at all. And it tends to be a very cognitive one, almost entirely, where we assess someone based on our own perception of reality, or at least our known perception of reality. So the issues are plenty, and many for that matter. Let me draw my awareness a little deeper to what I mean. When we meet someone, maybe for the first time, and we're asking questions, we're trying to understand who they are, what do they do for a living, what are their values, what are they passionate about. We're trying to see, okay, can I relate to this person? And often what we're doing in that process of determining whether we relate to someone is we're trying to take what they say, what that person may say, he or she, and see if we can connect it to our own given perceptions of life. So if you say something that I, in my own understanding of what I believe and what I think, it resonates, and I can find some connection to that, I will maybe then determine that, okay, maybe this is someone I relate to. The whole idea of relating to someone implies that you're trying to connect what you think you know to what they have described about themselves. And if you see a connection, then you may pursue the relationship. But I think it's a very, very narrow scope of communication here. Essentially each of us are living in a very, very small, narrow realm. We're all living in our little worlds, if you will, of our own assumptions, our own conditioning. And when we meet someone, it's a shame that we have to, or at least we tend to, we don't have to, we tend to filter them through our own narrow realm of thinking. And I think there's possibilities beyond that. That's why I mention it. I know it's funny when I talk about these things which seem so obvious to our normal way of doing things. People are like, oh yeah, well, so what? That's the way it is. But my intention is to really say, hey, look at this. Look what happens when you're trying to connect with someone. Take a hard look at it. That's an experiment in itself, if you will. Why don't you try that? I invite you to do that. When you meet someone, maybe even someone you already know, see how you're trying to connect with them. See what processes are going on in the mind. And begin to really observe how limiting and how narrow they can be. And I would venture very strongly to assert that we tend to reject a lot of people because they don't meet our little blueprint. our little evaluation scorecard. And people are so unique that I don't think we can intellectually grasp anyone. And that's why I often tend to resist that limited scope of communication, which is merely intellectual. And that's why there can be so many misunderstandings that occur through email, through text-based conversations alone, because it can often negate what is the bigger part of communication altogether. I mean, we've all heard that verbal communication is only like a small fraction of all the non-verbal communication that's occurring. But even beyond that, I think we are really struggling to really witness each other, because we have not instilled within ourselves a capacity to witness ourselves, and so it works back and forth. If you can't bear witness to yourself, if you can't hold the space to see who you are beyond what you think you are, then how could you possibly do that for another human being? And that's the issue. I think understanding is a big, big myth. And I think we need to unravel that myth. And when I say myth, I mean it in the negative sense. It's an illusion, a delusion, more so. And behind that delusion is a truth of that we may be able to really meet each other on a deep, deep level, not just a surely intellectual level. We're trying to understand the words that we say. So I invite you to do this, because I think it's a very serious matter. Because as human beings, or as spiritual beings engaging in a human experience, relating tends to be a key thing. And I think it's fundamentally flawed in the way that we're engaging in it. And we need more and more courageous people to explore and pioneer new ways of actually meeting each other in a raw, real sense. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.